Hello, I'm going to do my checks and I'll be with you in a moment. I hope you had a good day today because we're going to have a very good podcast tonight. Let me get over here and do this. And we're going to be good to go. I'm going to do my checks and we're good to go. Okay, I'm in the house. I would like to welcome everyone to our meeting of the encounters. This is the Encounter Show. And today I have a very good subject matter. We always have good subject matters. But today we're talking about something that you probably haven't heard about. Okay, because you're too busy watching that Olympics. So there's things you haven't been hearing about. But we're going to talk about what's going on in Greenland. Have you heard what's going on in Greenland? That's what we're going over today. And I'm just making sure that everything is good to go. And we should be good. Yes. So just give me one more second. And I think we're super good. Yeah. So I'm your full spectrum Gnostic. I'm Lynn David Livesey. And let's get started. So have you heard what's going on in Greenland? Should you give a damn about what's going on in Greenland? Well, they haven't been covering it on CNN, on Fox News, anywhere. It's just not being covered what's going on. So that means that I have to cover it. If they're not going to cover it, then that means I have to be the one to tell you what is going on. Okay. So we know about summer and we know about winter and we know about all this stuff. And people have been talking global warming for a very long time. Super boring. No one cares. And every year the ice in Greenland melts. You know, we got those glaciers that be melting and people get excited. But the glaciers are floating on water. So when you have an ice cube floating in the water and the ice cube melts, that's kind of exciting. It makes a good show. But it doesn't mean anything. It's water on top of water. But now the ice sheet is melting. The ice sheet is this big thing over there. If you look, let me get my finger. If you look up there, that is the ice sheet that covers Greenland. It's 1 mile thick. Greenland is half the size of the United States. It only got 57,000 people that live there. That's a super tiny town. But for a place that is half the size of the United States with 57,000 people living there, they all live along the outer edge. Plus, you have a few military bases that we're not talking about today because they're supposed to be top secret and you're not supposed to know about them. So that's what's going on in Greenland. Plus, we got a few other things you're not supposed to know about going on in Greenland, which we're not talking about either. But we're talking about the ice in Greenland. Now, what has changed? You know, every year the ice melts and then it reforms and whatever. And this is the melting season in Greenland. But this year, the ice is melting like there's no tomorrow. It's melting like an ice cream cone. You're trying to eat an ice cream cone and it's 100 degrees outside. You can't lick it fast enough. It is melting. The ice is forming rivers. We're not talking sea ice. We're talking glacier ice, which is miles away from the sea, which is sitting on top of the land. And is melting so rapidly, it's forming rivers in the ice, racing towards the sea. And billions of gallons have melted. This is the biggest melt they have ever seen. Okay, and we've been keeping records for at least, since World War II. We have never seen melting like this. And according to those Inuits that live over there, they have never seen anything like this in their lifetimes. Because their houses are built on permafrost. And some of their houses and some of their lodges are being swept away. And they have never, and they've been living there forever. Even they remember, even when the Vikings came almost 1,000 years ago, they was already there. Okay. And they have never seen melting like this. Okay. And you're still saying, but man, who cares? This is very alarming, the melting. It have melted so much. I could give you some astronomical number that you can't even fathom in your head. But if you totaled all the melting that have happened so far this year in Greenland and stack that water on top of Florida, Florida would be 2 feet deep in water. That much ice has melted. The melting season is not finished yet. It's coming to an end in the next month or two, but it is dramatically melting. You're still saying, man, who cares? Because I think we have found the reason for a lot of strange things that are going on. Remember, over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been super effing hot. It's been super effing cold. The weather's been all screwed up. All kind of stuff is going on. And science have not been able to explain our crazy weather. I think we're starting to put the dominoes together and they're starting to click. It all has to do with that big ice ball at the top of the world. Okay. And Greenland, even though is melting, this is going to make a dramatic change, not only in our climate, but the climate throughout all of America, Central America, this and that. This, who knows what's going to happen if this continues. So this is the reason we're talking about this subject, because this might affect all of us if this doesn't stop. So was this just a one bad year and then things are going to go back to normal? We don't know. The previous record of melting in Greenland was 2 years ago. This year just blew that record out of the water like there was no turning back. Okay. So what does this mean? Is the ice only melting in Greenland? No, it is melting in a lot of places, all over the place. It's melting in Canada, and it's melting in Russia, in Siberia. We talked about this a few months ago, about how the ice in Siberia is melting very rapidly and is blowing holes in the permafrost, because the methane is underneath with the permafrost. And when the methane builds up, there's a giant explosion and you get these holes in the ice in Siberia. We have already discussed that. Okay. Now, we're over here, if you know what time it is. Lynn Livesey is biting his nails over what's going on in Greenland. Some other people, scientists, are worried. But in Russia, they're not worried. They're grinning from ear to ear, because with the ice caps melting, Siberia is starting to open up. And one thing, Russia is the biggest country in the world, but most of their land is landlocked because of the ice. They cannot use all that coastline that they have because it's all covered in ice. And what is happening, all of that ice is melting. And over here in Alaska and in Canada and all over us, we're worried about those polar bears. We're worried about this. We're worried about a lot of things. Russia don't give a damn about those polar bears. Russia's grinning from ear to ear because Russia sees this as a global opportunity. Around 5-10 years ago, Russia took a nuclear submarine and went up above Siberia and planted a Russian flag on the ocean floor. There, we consider that to be international waters. Russia is declaring all the water above their country to be Russian property. And they are building several military bases up there. They're building what is called they're building a fleet of ships with several nuclear power icebreakers, and they're going to explore that section, and they're going to let ships go through there, not for free. They're going to charge you. And Russia's with their military, we're trying to say those are international waters. Russia's building several military bases up there to let us know that don't even think about it. Okay. But over here, we're scared because of those polar bears. Okay. But Russia sees that opening up, and Russia see all underneath that the ice in Siberia. Not only is there a frozen rainforest that we told you about before, there's also all kind of minerals and oil and everything else that you couldn't get to because the ground was so frozen and so hard. Now that the ground is opening up, Russia doesn't care if they spill oil here, oil there, make a little mess. Hey, that's part of making money. Okay. But over on our side, we are worried about a lot of things. So let's talk about, so this ice is not only melting in Greenland. We haven't got any numbers of what is melting over in Russia. Okay. But we're only today just talking about the melting in Greenland and the impact of the water, which is melting, which is running into the ocean off the Greenland continent. But this runoff is not only happening in Greenland, it's happening along the entire Russian coastline of Siberia, running into the ocean too. Okay. And this is massive. So we also have some melting. Let me scoot our little slideshow up so you can see. This is what is going on. Let's go back some. This is what is going on off the coast of Canada. You only have the Inuits up there. Okay. You got melting all along the northern parts of Canada, which is devastating the Eskimos and the Inuits and all of that. And their fishing villages are sinking into the water and are having all kind of problem. And their houses are leaning and whatever. And we're worried about those polar bears being stuck in the ice, and the ice is melting. Okay. But Canada's also grinning a little bit too, because Canada's planning on, just like the Russians, planning on all that land is already a part of Canada up there, and Canada is planning on letting ships pass through there, called the Northern Passage. And they tried to do this through the 1800s. And through the 1800s, several thousand sailors got killed trying to go through the Northern Passage. You're not going to have any problems now. And they estimate within the next 10, 20 years, you'll be able to sell almost anything. And Canada's grinning because Canada, just like Russia, is planning on charging people for the privilege of passing through, going around the top of Canada. Then you don't have to go to the Panama Canal. You don't have to go around South America. You can go around the top of Canada. These are good things. Russia's happy. Canada's happy. Maybe we should be happy. But our scientists and Lindsay is not very happy, because let's go back. I guess I didn't put my slideshow in the right order, because this is what we're worried about. This right here. This is something they did not teach you in school. This is called the jet stream. You see that red water goes around in a circle, and then it goes up between Scandinavia and Greenland, and it gets very, very cold. And then the cold water is forced down, and it comes back down. Okay, that circulation of cold and hot air is what keeps the tropics so nice and beautiful. Because you're getting warm air going up, cold air coming down, and that unfortunately is the cause of what is called hurricanes, because you can see that circular motion which is going on in the Atlantic. Okay. But this is what makes Central America so, and the top of South America so beautiful. Why you have the rainforest and everything grows so green and everything. And since we're in the middle of this, this is what keeps America with a temperate climate because that warm air is being forced down by the cold air. So most of the United States have a medium temperature. It's not too hot, it's not too cold. It's the way Goldilocks like it. Okay. You understand? But what's been happening for the last 2 or 3 years, especially this year, with Greenland melting so much, the amount of cold water coming down is decreasing. That means there's less warm water being able to escape from the north. That's causing that circulation to move up. What I'm saying is this, you see this circle here? This is moving up. All of this rain, which we call the hurricanes, used to be down here off the coast of Florida and in Mexico over here. Now this is moving up this way because there's not enough cold water pressure to keep it pushed down. So this line here is now cutting across the southern part of the United States. This is why in Texas it's been raining like there's no tomorrow. It's been flooding in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. These are supposed to be desert states because all of that rain is supposed to be south of us. Is that warmth is moving up. The jet stream is moving up. This is why the climate is changing throughout the United States. This is one of the reasons why people that like to complain about all these immigrants trying to get into America, this is one of the reasons why these people that live down here that was dependent upon the monsoons and things, and now that the rain has moved up, they're having growth problems down there. That is the reason a lot of them are starting to move this direction. You know, we would wish that people would just starve to death quietly and peacefully. They're not going to do that. Okay. And as this cold water fails, this line here will continue to move further and further north. But Lynn, that could be good. But instead of Florida having these giant rainy season and all of that rain falling in the Gulf of Mexico, it's not falling in the middle of the water anymore. Now it's starting to fall on the land. That is why we're getting all these floods. And if you're a farmer, you know what crop to plant because you've been living in that area for 50 years, 100 years, and you've been planting the same crops because you know what the weather's like. So you plant crops which will grow good in your area. That is before the whole weather line goes crazy and moves up here. And now where it used to rain, it is now dry. And where it used to be dry, like where I live along the Mexican border, it used to be a desert environment. Do you know a few years ago, last year, we could go a month or two without a single day of rain. Do you know this year it's been raining almost every day, every other day for the last several months? Okay. We don't have the sewer systems for that. We don't have the runoff. We don't have nothing. This is why Houston keeps getting flooded over and over again in these other cities. Because we're built for a semi-desert environment. Now, all this water that used to fall here is now way over here. And all of the crops that people used to plant here because we had a very dry climate is now their crops are getting flooded and dying. Do you understand the significance of what I'm talking about? See, because a farmer doesn't need to go to Las Vegas. He's put all of his chips and say, I'm going to plant corn. He goes and spend $50,000, $80,000, all this fertilizer, this and that, everything else. He is fully invested in what is going on. He is fully in the game. Now, if the game goes well, at the end of the season, he get to cash out his chips, and he makes out like a bandit. But if his crops get flooded and destroyed and hailstorms and this and that, and it didn't rain where it used to rain, and it's raining too much then we wonder why the price of food is going crazy. Because, see, we need that blue line of water to push the heat down. This is failing because Greenland is not cold anymore. This is also changing the fishermen. Do you know off the coast of Alaska, they're now catching fish that's supposed to be near Hawaii, and they're all the way up near Alaska, and they're catching them in their nets, and they're like, what the hell? Okay. Because the fish are chasing the warm water. And this explains why we're getting bird die-off. Because the birds, they've been doing the same thing for hundreds and thousands of years. They fly to where they know the fish are going to be. And they're licking their lips. They fly for hundreds, thousands of miles, and they go there, and the fish are not there because the fish is somewhere where they're not supposed to be because the weather patterns change, and then the birds don't have nothing to eat, and they fall out of the sky. And you've been having these birds dropping all over the place because the birds are starving. They didn't get the email from the fish that, hey, we're not going to be here. We're moving several thousand miles this direction. The birds didn't get the email. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Okay. Since I'm still talking crazy, let's talk about this. See, since we have this circle here, this is where all the hurricanes are because you have circular motion. So, but you have all these people are prepared for hurricanes because this is where the hurricanes are. If this moves up to here, now you're getting hurricanes in New Jersey and New York City, and they don't have hurricane codes up there. They don't know. Do you understand the problem? Do you understand what is happening? Now, we don't know what is going on. Is that blue line just turning into a light blue line, or will that blue line die? Science doesn't know what would happen if that blue line went away. If that blue line went away and you only had red, you would no longer have this circle anymore. The heat would stay stagnant in this area. You wouldn't have this exchange of hot and cold. You would just have stagnant heat over a certain area in the ocean. That's the problem we have in the Pacific Ocean, where you have these giant patches of just super hot area, where the ocean has it's not that much life in those areas. The Atlantic is full of fish because you get that circulation. Okay. So we're in unknown territory. No one knows what's going to happen. The only thing we know is that the jet stream is off. This is why California and the West is burning, because they used to have, it doesn't snow anymore in the mountains, in the Rocky Mountains like it used to. Without the snow, you don't have melting in the spring because it didn't snow during the winter, because all the weather patterns are off. Now, I am not going to say this is man's fault or this is God's fault or this or this. I think there's enough blame to go around. But we're definitely not innocent. Okay. We have done our part. Now, maybe the sun is a little bit hotter. We talked about before that the sun is giving off a lot more ultraviolet light than it used to. So maybe the sun gets a demerit or two also. Us with all of our heavy pollution, we probably get a demerit or two also. Mother Nature may be kind of upset. She might get a demerit or two. There might be enough blame to go around for everybody. Okay. But we live on this ball here. Okay. And if you screw up the weather patterns, how is a farmer going to be able to plant his crops? And when next farming season come around, and if he gets screwed 2 or 3 times, he's not going to be willing to play that game anymore. He's going to say, I played that game 2, 3 times, I lost. I don't think I want to play that game anymore. I'm not investing no more chips in the game. Okay. Where is our food going to come from? Okay. So this is one of the big problems that we have. And hopefully, I wouldn't cross your fingers. Hopefully, this year was just a super bad year in Greenland and you had super massive melting. And hopefully next year and the next couple of years, things will slowly get back to normal. But I don't think so. Because remember, the record of melting was just 2 years ago. And this year just passed that record like it was no tomorrow. So, now that we talked that, before I go into the next thing, let me see if anybody's falling asleep out there or whatever. Okay. You have several people listening and everything. Yeah. It's, in some areas you got too much water. Like in Texas, it's just too much water. Out there in California and places, there have drought conditions because it's not raining. Everything is just screwed up. Okay. And as I said, you need to have stable conditions if you're going to grow food. Okay. So, let's go on. Okay. A lot of people still saying, Len, who cares? The Olympics is going on. Why are you disturbing my Olympic dreams, talking all this BS? Okay. I could care less. Well, let me talk to you about something else you might want to care about. Okay. We believed long time ago. How long ago? Around 20 years ago, we thought because of global warming, the oceans was going to rise by a few inches in the next 30, 40, 50 years. The new estimate now, in the next 20 to 30 years, that the ocean could rise by 3 to 7 feet. That is not inches anymore. Now they're talking feet. Okay. And what do that mean? If you look along the East Coast, even where Texas is, where Florida is, where everything is, that will devastate this country. Not only in the rest of the world too, but America, especially since we call this place home. The problem is, you know, which we can show the picture right here to give people more example of what is going on. That's Miami, Florida. That could be South Padre Island in Texas. The highest point in South Padre Island is only 7 feet above sea level. Okay. Most of South Texas is, the lower part is 1 or 2 feet above sea level. The highest part is 10, 12 feet above sea level. If we get 3 to 7 feet of sea level rise, that's going to put a lot of cities underwater very quickly. Very quickly. And that is if at the current level. Now, just like, we're having the same problem with weather scientists as we're having with the CDC. One day they say wear your mask, then you don't need to wear it. Then they say you need to put it back on. Then they say you can take it off. Then you need 1 shot, you need 2 shots. Then they say you might need a 3rd shot. You say no. Okay, they keep changing their mind. The weather scientists keep changing their mind. First they said a few inches. Now they're saying a few feet. Who knows what they'll be saying 5 years from now? Because they've never seen this movie before. They don't really know what's going on. Okay. And as you can see in this map here, a lot of the coastline don't even think about living in a place like New Orleans. New Orleans used to be 7 feet to 9 feet below sea level. Parts of New Orleans is now 10 to 12 feet below sea level. And then you're going to add another 3 to 7 feet on top of that? That is super effing scary. Okay. Now, in America, we got beer. We're having a good time. We're not worried. Some of the rest of the world is kind of freaking out. Australia is thinking about spending billions of dollars to build a giant seawall to protect Sydney, Australia, and several other cities. England built this thing across the Thames that costed billions of dollars to keep London from flooding. You don't want to even talk about what they're doing in Scandinavia. Places like the Netherlands and all those countries, they have spent hundreds of billions of dollars to make sure that their countries don't go under. Because the Netherlands, most of the Netherlands was reclaimed land from the ocean. Most of the Netherlands is below sea level at this point already. If it wasn't for the dikes, the whole half of the country would be underwater. And this is before the sea level goes up. Okay. They have spent billions and billions and billions. In places like Venice, they spent several billion building a system to keep the city from flooding. And the true test of it was this year, and the city went underwater. Okay, so it was only around a foot or so. But maybe they need to spend a few more billion. Okay. Now, that's the rest of the world. Let's talk about America. How many billion have we spent to keep our cities safe? Let me give you the answer. 0. In case you don't know it, most of Manhattan Island, we doubled the size of Manhattan Island by dumping garbage, and we did back around in the early 1900s. We greatly expanded the size of Manhattan Island. A lot of Manhattan is actually below sea level. The pumps in New York City has to stay on, just like in New Orleans, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to keep the city dry. What are they going to do with this 3 feet of water? And if you go along a lot of cities along the Atlantic coast, like in Miami, the buildings are right up against the coastline. Some of these buildings are just 2 to 3 feet above sea level. We're not building no seawalls. We're not building nothing. Okay. We're not doing anything. Okay. Now, some people might say, Lynn, you're an alarmist. I've been hearing this for a long time, this and that. But if you don't believe me, go on Google, and everything I say is Googleable. Look up Greenland and what happened this year. And this is not sea ice, which is melting. This is glacier ice on the land, which is running into the ocean. Okay. And we're not even talking about the amount of ice which is melting in Siberia, which is running into the ocean. Okay. The problem with Russia is no one lives along the coast of Siberia, so they don't care if it gets flooded or not. Okay. But we got almost all of our cities along the coastline. This could be catastrophic. Okay. And if this does not slow down, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's say the worst case scenario. Let's say, okay, Lynn, Greenland got 1 mile of ice sitting on the land. What would happen if all the ice in Greenland melted? What is the worst case scenario? Will we go 12 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet? What is the worst case if all the ice in Greenland melted? What is the worst that could happen, Lynn? So I will know how big of a problem this is. Okay, I'll answer the question. If all the ice in Greenland melt, ocean level would rise by around 270 feet. That's not counting what's going on in Russia. That's not counting what's going on in Greenland. That's not, I mean, in Canada. That's not counting what's going on anywhere else. That's just Greenland, 270 feet. Okay. Now, will all the ice melt? Probably not. But let's say, we're able to, we're able to figure out we're smart SOBs. We still haven't been able to cure cancer. We still can't cure the common cold, but we was able to come up with a cure for coronavirus in 1 year. So maybe we could come up with a cure for the for the Greenland problem. Maybe we could just give it a vaccine or something. I don't know, or get it. I don't know what we can do, but we're some smart SOBs. We can figure something out. Okay. Tell Greenland to quit. Tell Greenland if you don't quit melting, we're going to put you on timeout. Okay. That's a good one right there, right? Okay. Tell Greenland you better behave. Okay. But this is something that we going to have to fix in the near future. Okay. And this is something, and you got to think, if we can't, it took Congress several years of debating just to, and they still haven't passed it yet. They've been working on a highway bill to fix the potholes and to expand our highways. They've been arguing over that bill for several years. Could you imagine the arguing and fighting and how many years it would take if we needed to build a seawall around the entire United States coastline? We couldn't even build a fence between the United States and Mexico. How are we going to build a seawall around the entire country? Okay. We need to start thinking about this. Okay. So I don't have any answers. As I said, there are some smart SOBs out there, but this is very major. Okay. And let's see what comments we have before I go further. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, everybody is just saying the same thing. I want to thank everyone for watching. Please share this show. This is very important stuff. For some reason, CNN, Fox News, nobody is covering this. Okay. But if you type in Greenland, is all over the place. What scientists have said about Greenland and what's going on, and they're just shocked at how much that melting was this year. Okay. And nobody really have an answer for what to do. So we still got 20 minutes left in the show. So since we talked that, now let's talk crazy. Okay. Notre Dame said, not Notre Dame. Was it Notre Dame? No, I got it wrong. Edward Casey, the sleeping prophet, he said that 5 countries would disappear in a single night. They would all be washed away and they would be no more. Edward Casey, the sleeping prophet, said that in the 1950s. Now, but then 5-7 feet ain't going to wash nothing away. Okay. This is the problem with sea rise. It doesn't take 1 inch at a time. For some reason, sea rise, when it happens in spurts. Okay. If you read the Gita, it talks about several cities that was swallowed and disappeared within a single night. And science thought for thousands of years those cities were fictional. The Gita said where those cities were at, especially one of the biggest cities in India. They said disappeared in a single night. But everyone thought that's the fable. People like to write stuff in books. It sells good, but it's not real. Until they had the tsunami. When they had the tsunami in Asia that killed 200,000 people, remember, all the water went out and then it came back in. Off the coast of India, when the water went out, a city rose from nowhere. No one knew that city was there. In the Bay of Bengal, no one knew there was a city there. Yes, it was written about in books for hundreds of years, but those books were fictional. And then when the tsunami came back in, it covered the city back up. And then afterwards, they went and investigated. And they have found out that is that city that was in those books. God damn it. Those books told the truth. It was the city that the god Rama founded. It was actually a real city and they found it. It was right where they said it was. It disappeared in a single night. Another example, Alexandria, Egypt. It was the largest city in Egypt. Several hundred years after Jesus, they had an earthquake, and half of the city fell into the ocean, fell into the Mediterranean Sea. And today, they go and pull statues and all kind of stuff out of the water. And you can go scuba diving trips and you can go into and see the temples and everything. Some of this stuff is in 12, 15, 20 feet of water. There's hundreds of these examples all over the world. So, water just don't come 1 inch at a time or 1 foot at a time. Water likes to wait. I don't know why. And then, okay. Now, we already been told by some of these people what's going to happen in New York City. According to them, there's going to be a giant storm. We don't know what year this is. So this is this year, 2 years from now, 5 years now. There's going to be a giant storm in New York City where the city is going to get severely flooded. It happened before, several times before. But this time, after the storm, the water will not recede. And they will try to pump the water out. They will try to do everything, but the water will not go back. And New York City will slowly start to get what is called inundated. Okay. This have already been foretold. But that happens by a storm that comes in. New York City got flooded a few weeks ago. The water came in, flooded the subways, all the streets and everything, but then the water went back out the way it's supposed to. But it's already been foretold. In this storm, the water will come in, inundate the city, but it will not go back out. It will stay there. And that will be the beginning of the end for New York City, because the water will not go back. And they're going to try to pump the water out. They're going to try to do everything, but the water is not going to leave. And I don't think that's the only city that's going to have that problem. We have our little friends from the future. They try to tell us things. They try to warn us about things. Maybe they can't change. Maybe the future can't be changed. Maybe there's nothing they can do. Maybe they're tourists from the future and they come and want to, they buy tickets to come and see, because they read about it in their history books and they say, well, I want to go and see that. How much is the ticket to go back in time and see that? We don't have that technology yet. Okay. But this is another reason why it has been written that, the world is changing. And the world as we know it is going away. Okay. And when you ask these people from the future, in the future, will the United States still be here? They said yes, but not as you know it. What does that mean? I don't have slides yet. Okay. How can America still be here, but not as we know it? That sounds like a riddle from the Riddler. You know what I'm talking about? If you can figure that one out, you're really good. Okay. So we have some big problems. Very big problems. We need to start working on our problems. And these other people, now, what they're doing in Scandinavia may not work. What they did in Venice, they spent billions of dollars and the city still got flooded. This giant thing they built on the Thames to protect London, it may not work. London still might go halfway under. Okay, but at least they get an E for effort. Okay, what do we get? We have not spent $1. We have done nothing. So at least they're trying. We're not even trying. And if the government said today we was going to try, people in America would rise up and say that's all conspiracy theory. I don't believe. Okay, because we're so confused and brainwashed as a people. This is the problem we have in this country. We are 300 over 300 million people, but we don't think as one nation, as one group of people. We we so there's nothing we could do. As I said, even if somebody wanted to start tackling this problem, nothing could get done. So I guess we might as well just get some lawn chairs, buy a few six packs, and watch the show. I guess that's what we're going to do. So, do anyone out there have any ideas of what can be done? Or is this just Mother Nature and there's nothing we can do? Mother Nature is going to do whatever it is going to do. Do people believe that man is in control of man's destiny and we can control things? We're able to build all these, the Hoover dams and this and that. How come we can't tackle and save New York City or Miami or somewhere? We can't save every city, but we need to do something. Maybe New Orleans can't be saved. Okay. But we have spent, that's one city that we have spent money on. Okay, after New Orleans got flooded, we have spent billions on that city. But the city is more underwater now. The levees, they keep making the levees higher and higher and higher. Okay. Is that what we should do everywhere? Let's see. Do anyone have a comment or an opinion or whatever? If you do have something, I don't see anybody with, I guess we don't have any nuclear physicists out there or somebody who, I guess we don't have some. I was hoping somebody would come in with the secret solution, but I guess we just need to watch the show. Okay. And this is the problem we're going to have over the next few years. We having massive problems. With coronavirus, we got this thing what's going on in Greenland. We're having economic issues. We're having all these different problems. We're having, we're on the verge of World War III, which a lot of people are not aware about. And we've got all this stuff going on. And most people, as it says in the Bible, in Noah's day, they was getting married and being given in marriage until the rain started. They had no idea what was going on. And in America, well, we're too busy watching football games and sports and basketball and everything else. We have no interest of what is going on. And we just believe that if we just, close our eyes and go la, 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 all of our problems will magically go away. But they're not going to magically go away. Okay. This virus is not going to magically go away. The problem we're having with so many problems, with the flooding across this country, with the changing environment, with the fires we have on the West Coast, with, oh my gosh, earthquakes increasing everything. A lot of people believe that we're in the end times. And I would tend to agree on that. But I'm not saying the world is coming to an end. The only thing that is ending is the world as we know it. And this is what the Great Crossing is about. We have to cross from the old world to the new world. And the Bible says that there will be a new heaven and a new earth, because the world of the future is not going to look like it does now. But we have to survive to get to the other side. The question is, there's 7 billion people on this planet. 7.5 billion. How many of that number is going to make it to the other side? That is what we need to be working about. And some people are hoping that most of us don't make it to the other side. They're only, like I was talking the other day about the movie 2012, they just wanted where the rich and the corporations make it to the other side. They wish, like they talk about in, I like to talk about movies because these movies are secret society films. Remember in that movie about the Umbrella Corporation? They did that plague on purpose, and their thing was to eliminate the population of the earth so they could start anew. Okay. I don't think our government, well, I don't think so, because I'm an optimistic person, would do something like that. But we need to solve our problems. Okay. And we need to make the world a better place for our children. And maybe we can't save Miami or New York City or whatever, but it's not the end of the world. Okay. You see what I'm saying? We can rebuild buildings if we have to, but we cannot replace people. And if we want people to quit crossing from Central America and coming up here, then we need to make it where they can survive in their own little country. And as long as the weather is crazy, people will move around. Okay. And if you're going to have fires everywhere and floods everywhere and this and that, people are going to do what they have to do to survive. And with America, we're lucky because we have something called money, bank accounts, and stimulus checks and this and that and everything else. In a lot of the world, you don't get nothing. The only thing you can depend on is you and your family. And that's why these people risk their lives to cross thousands of miles to make a better life. And that's what I did. When things fell apart in Ohio a long time ago and the automobile industry died, that's how I came to Texas. I was just not going to just wither up and die over there. I packed up everything I had and I came to where the jobs are. Okay. And if this area I live in, if the water gets too deep or whatever happens, I'm a survivalist. I will do what I have to do to survive. That is the attitude you need to have. But the one thing we need to have so we can survive the coming, I'm not going to say coming apocalypse, it's the coming changes. The earth changes. We need to have the number one thing we need. The people are going to say it's beer and more alcohol. That's not the answer. We need information. I believe the government knows a lot of what is going on. I believe, just like I told you about what Russia's doing, building all these bases and this and that and everything else, they're planning for the future. I believe our government is planning for the future too. Because they're going to make sure that the government survives. They need to work on making sure that the citizens of this country survive too. It would be a great thing. Okay, since they supposedly work for us. So this is something I always give you things you need to think about, and I try to give you things which are not being covered in the news. This is something, you don't have to take my word for what's going on. Everything I tell you is Googleable. You can Google it, you can look it up yourself, and you will see what they're saying. Okay. But the new estimate of sea rise before the year 2040, 2050 is not 3 to 4 inches as before. Now they're talking 3 feet. In worst scenario, 7 feet. That's a hell of a difference. Things you should think about. You need to share this video, and we are smart SOBs. We need to figure out what we need to do as a human race to survive. I'm Len David Livesey, your full spectrum Gnostic. I'm glad you joined me today. Share this video with your friends and families. And you have my, you could distribute this however you would like. And until next time, I wish to see you again very soon. Thank you so much. Bye.